connecting people, building communities, helping clients to build multi-generational wealth through real estate.
Today, we have the privilege of having Danielle Unsworth with us. She's been a source of inspiration for myself personally, watching her at her 40s, she turned 40 this year, and how amazing she has been doing, not only being a great inspiring woman, a great mom, but also a great real estate investor. Welcome, Danielle.
Thank you so much, Mitra, for having me. I'm honored to be here, and thank you for your kind words. I really appreciate it.
Of course, it's a pleasure. I really hope that we would have more of you in every day of our life, because it just shows that the possibilities are unlimitless, and it just, unlimited. Whatever we do is about mindset, what our goals are and what we can do to make things happen for us and for our family. So can you tell us more about you?
Yes.
Number one, who you are, what's your background, what made you actually to invest in real estate? Just talk about your journey.
Sure. Yes. So I am originally from Cambodia, and I've been living in Ottawa for many years, over 30 years. And I started investing in real estate sort of by accident. I didn't know about all these strategies that are available now. At the time, it was around 2008. I bought my first property using like my waitressing tips, help from my mom. And I had no idea what I was doing, but I just knew I wanted to buy a property, because that's sort of like the immigrant dream, right? You come to Canada, you want to have that ownership feeling. And so I kind of made all sorts of mistakes, but I did end up with my first property at 24. And then I learned the power of refinancing. So by refinancing our property, we were able to pull out the equity and then buy another property. And so that's kind of how I started, investing in real estate, but it was totally by accident. But it wasn't until COVID happened that I really took my real estate investing to the next level. I started investing in coaches. I started taking courses. I really treated it like a business instead of, buying houses, being a landlord, and just kind of winging it. So that's when I just really educated myself, invested in myself, and I was able to turn my small portfolio of 4 properties to over 100 properties in less than 3 years, because of all of the investing that I had put into myself and my business. And so that's kind of my journey. I was able to go from, just a small portfolio to a large portfolio using social media, coaches, and just learning as much as I can. And now what I'm doing is sharing what I've learned with other women so that they can also take that next step and feel confident in their finances and in their investing journey. And so that's kind of my journey in a summary. There's way more that's happened between then and now, but it'll just come out when we discuss.
Outstanding job. And I can, by listening to you, I'm just seeing that how you picked up also the moments that were somehow a crisis mode. In 2008, we had the recession. Mm-hmm. And that was a great time to invest in real estate. And during COVID time, oh my God, great years of investing in ourselves, changing the lifestyle, changing the way we look at things, actually, by something that was completely unpredictable. So when you say that you started with one property in 2008, and then you had 4 properties, and suddenly you increased to 100 properties. When did it happen? From 2008 to 2020, there is a 12 years timeline. So what was your tipping point? What was really the breakthrough where you saw that's it, that's the momentum? Did you time the market, or did you just buy at no matter what market?
So that's a really good question. And so if you And I really like that you picked up the key timelines. So 2008, 2009, that's when, we were going through a crisis, right? But I bought when everybody was selling, right? That was when, and I was very young. I didn't really know what was happening. I just went for it. And then same thing during COVID, I saw the momentum pick up. And so the 3 properties or the 4 properties that we had, I saw the value of them increase so much. We refinanced all those properties and they had made so much in equity over the 10, 12 years that we owned them. We were able to take all that money and buy more properties because it was such a hot market. But I used the money very strategically. I would use it in different partnerships so that I could grow the portfolio. I wasn't going and buying single family homes anymore. I was buying, multifamily so that I could diversify all that equity that I had gained. But so for me, that's why right now when people are acting, fearful, I'm saying this is the time for you to look for those deals, because when 2030 comes around, everybody will be saying, oh my goodness, I should have bought in 2023, right? So this is really the time to be strategic about the purchases that people are going to be making, because even though interest rates are high, there's still a huge shortage of supply. So it's not quite like in 2008. In 2008, 2009, I remember seeing for sale signs everywhere. There are houses for sale all over the neighborhood. It's not quite like that right now. The issue right now is the interest rates, but there's still a shortage of supply. So that means there's still a demand. So you need to really go out there and look for those deals. It's going to take more effort and more work, but you need to find those deals and buy those properties now, because once interest rates starts to decrease, the shortage is still going to be there, right? So now this is the time where you're going to be making that equity.
Absolutely. So, Danielle, with the shortage of, you actually brought a great point, the supply and demand. In 2008, there were a lot of listings out there and there were a lot of choices. And right now, there are not sufficient even inventory that people can pick from. And we don't know how long the interest rate. I mean, in 2008, I would say the interest rate was perhaps around 4.5%, 5%, if I'm not mistaken. It was not really 2 or 2.5%. So it was not a huge difference between there and now. However, the supply is creating a problem for some investors who have certain criteria. And the question is whether they can bring some flexibility on their price point, on their parameters, on the geographic search. No matter what it is, I completely agree with you that now is the time to invest in real estate, because 2 years from now, we would again regret why we didn't invest.
Exactly. Sorry, go ahead.
No worries. I do remember in 2000 when I moved to Canada, the interest rate was 6.5%. And my first real estate investment was in Europe, where I used to live in France, in Paris. We paid 12.5% in 1990. And so when I was getting an interest rate of 6.5%, I was saying, oh my God, what a great interest rate. Oh, we are back to where we were. And it just is a new norm to get used to it and then still think whether real estate investment is for us or not. With that, can you tell us about your strategy? Are you investing in real estate for flipping around long-term rental, multi-residential unit, as you mentioned, commercial properties? What's your strategy around that?
Yes. So for me personally, I don't do flips, because to me, it's very labor intensive. There's a lot of capital required, and it's very dependent on the market, right? It's like when you buy a property and your plans are to renovate it and then sell it for a profit, you really need to trust that the market is going to be what you think it's going to be when you first buy the property. So for me, That's never been my strategy. I'm always a buy and hold. So I always hold most of my properties for at least, I'm going to say 5 years. That's the goal. And so for me, it's been multifamily apartment buildings because they're a lot more stable. And the way that the evaluation of multifamilies are taken into account are not necessarily based on comparables, right? So it's really how the property is performing, how much rental income is coming in, how much are the expenses, and it's based on those calculations. So is the apartment building able to carry itself? It doesn't really matter if the next door neighbor sells it for X amount. So it's very different than single family homes and condos, etc. So for me, multifamily apartment buildings are a safer, more stable asset class. And I have a short-term rental property, but I don't manage it myself. This is when I diversify and I partnered with someone that is an expert with short-term rentals, and they are the ones that are doing the day-to-day operations. So that's one of my strategies is apartment buildings, buy and hold. And then if I do anything that requires a lot more labor or more attention, then I pretty much diversify by partnering with someone who is the expert in that field. So those have been my strategies so far. So I don't do, flips. I don't do Airbnbs myself. So I don't wholesale. So anything that requires a lot of like active energy is really not for me, because I like things that are long-term investments and that require the least amount of actual energy going into those deals.
Thank you for sharing that, Danielle.
Connecting people, building communities, helping clients to build multi-generational wealth through real estate.